And there are more women who drinks alcohol than smoke cigarette. Because there are a lot of different forms of alcohol. Kaya even if it's just a beverage, a small amount of alcohol, it would still be alcoholic beverage. So let's talk about alcohol. It is a psychoactive substance with dependence-producing properties. Alright? So it is ethyl alcohol or ethanol is an intoxicating ingredient found in beer, wine, and liquor. Alcohol is produced by the fermentation of yeast, sugars, and starches. So remember this process, fermentation, an anaerobic process. It is a metabolic process in which carbohydrates such as sugar or starch is turned into an alcohol or an acid. Okay, so that's the basic process, and then it is followed by distillation, which is a process in which alcohol containing solution is heated and vapors collected and condensed into a liquid form. Okay, so the measurement for this is proof, which is the alcoholic content of distilled beverage. So there are two types of alcoholic beverages, those that are undistilled and those that are distilled. So for undistilled, we have the beer and the wines, and we have these liquors that are distilled products of alcohol. Okay, and these are whiskey, brandy, and so on and so forth. So these are more potent compared to your undistilled beer and wine. So if you look at the standard drink and how much alcohol they contain, for your 12 ounce of beer, only 5% of alcohol content. Okay? However, for a malt liquor, I really do not know this malt liquor, there is 7%. What is more familiar to me is the beer and the wine. Now, even if we just take 5 ounces of wine, it contains more alcohol than your beer. You see, 12% alcohol content. So, ano yung mga wine na iniinom mo? The red wine and the white wine. So, seemingly harmless, no? Pero, it contains 12% of alcohol already. And for the hard liquor, the distilled spirits or liquor, 1.5 ounce or 1 shot of an 80 proof distilled spirit contains already 40% alcohol content. So, just take a look at this alcohol content and just imagine how it would affect your liver. So, the alcohol content is measured in terms of proof, which indicates how much percentage of alcohol by volume the drink contains, and is twice the percentage of alcohol by volume. So if it's 80 proof of vodka, it means there is 40% alcohol in that 80 proof of liquor. So what do you mean when you talk of moderate drinks? So drink moderately. So what is considered moderate? So moderate alcohol consumption is defined as having up to 1 drink per day for women and up to 2 drinks per day for men. Okay, so yun yung a moderate drink. Alright, so what is it with alcohol? That's why we need to emphasize it should be taken moderately. Because it's a central nervous system depressant that is rapidly absorbed from the stomach and small intestine into the bloodstream. It is mainly metabolized by liver enzymes. However, the liver can only metabolize a small amount of alcohol at a time. So leaving now the excess alcohol to circulate throughout the body. Okay? So the intensity of the effect of alcohol on the body is directly related to the amount consumed. Alright? So kung marami kang ininom na alak, mabagal ang metabolism niyan, saan mapupunta yung excess na yon? Nandoon umiikot sa buong katawan, including the central nervous system. Alright? So this alcohol metabolism in terms of blood concentration level is higher in women. Why? Because there is higher proportion of body fat. And in women, there is alcohol dehydrogenase is slower. Kaya mas madaling malasing ang women at mas matagal siyang matagal yung time na siya ay lasing. Kaya karamihan ng mga rape victims sa mga party, ito yung nangyayari. Because they drank alcohol and they got really drunk. So the behavioral effect of alcohol depends on the blood alcohol level, which is the concentration of alcohol in blood expressed in grams per deciliter. So this is a poster that shows the blood alcohol content in terms of number of drinks. So if you have 2 to 3 standard drinks, there is already impaired judgment and relaxed inhibition, and that would amount to 0.05% of alcohol. Now, if you have more, 5 to 6 of the standard drinks, that it increases to 0.10%. That now leads to impaired coordination, delayed reaction time, exaggerated emotion, and impaired peripheral vision, even impaired ability to operate a vehicle. So look at when you attend parties, how many standard drinks are you able to consume? Okay? And in 8 to 9, slurred speech ka na, blurred vision ka na. So you don't wait for this, no? Most of the time, nandito kayo sa 5 to 6. And yet some people still have the courage to drive after a party. So it would usually lead to accidents because of this. What is considered legal limit of alcohol? So the legal limit, the alcohol level above which a person is subject to legal penalties. For example, arrest or loss of a driver's license. However, the legal limits are measured using either a blood alcohol test or breath analyzer. I have not seen this device, but that's what they are using. In the hospital, we measure blood level through the blood, no? Blood alcohol test. And what is considered legal? The legal limit is 0.08%. That means 80 milligrams per deciliter. This is the legal limit for operating a motor vehicle for drivers aged 21 years or older. However, for younger drivers, younger than 21, okay, they are not allowed to operate a motor vehicle with any level of alcohol in their system. Okay, note that legal limits do not define a level below which it is safe to operate a vehicle or engage in some other activity. Impairment due to alcohol use begins to occur at levels well below the legal limit. So 0.08 is about 5 to 6 drinks. So this is when it becomes apparent when you develop impaired coordination, delayed reaction time, impaired peripheral vision, and impaired ability to operate a vehicle. So 0.08. Dito pala, dito siya. Kasi 0.08 eh. Here, tama. 5 to 6 drinks, 0.10% maximum. But the legal limit is at 0.08. Excessive alcohol, you usually use the word binge drinking. What does it really mean? It is defined as a pattern of alcohol consumption that brings the blood alcohol concentration level to 0.08 or more. This pattern of drinking usually corresponds to 5 or more drinks on a single occasion for men, or 5 or more drinks on a single occasion for women, within about 2 hours. So usually a party, how long does it last? A party, usually 2 to 4 hours yan eh. Pero kung in 2 hours you have already consumed this much, then that is already considered binge drinking. Now, how do you say that you are a heavy drinker? For men, typically defined as consuming 15 drinks per week, at least. And for women, 8 drinks or more per week. So, yan yung numbers, magic numbers to say that your patient is already a heavy drinker. Now, what does it lead to, apart from metabolic problem like fatty liver, alcoholic liver disease? It can lead to alcohol use disorder. Problem drinking that becomes severe is given the medical diagnosis of alcohol use disorder, or AUD. So it's a chronic relapsing brain disease characterized by compulsive alcohol use, loss of control over alcohol intake, and negative emotional state when not using. in our common parlance, we call these people they are already alcoholic, no? But that is not a politically correct term. We refer to it as alcohol use disorder. And according to DSM-5, okay, you can classify it into severity of mild, moderate, severe. Okay, knowing the DSM-5, if you have mild, 2 to 3 symptoms, moderate, 4 to 5, severe, 6 or more symptoms. So you need to be familiar with the DSM-5 criteria for alcohol use disorder before you can classify your patient. So these are the criteria that you need to look for you to be able to classify your patient. Okay, that is according to your DSM-5. So what is now the alcohol withdrawal syndrome? Now you have diagnosed your patient to have alcohol use disorder. All right. So you would like now you advise your patient to discontinue. Your patient said yes. You now have to prepare him for the alcohol withdrawal syndrome. Withdrawal usually begins 6 to 24 hours after the last drink. It can last up to a week. To be classified as alcohol withdrawal, patient must exhibit at least 2 of the following symptoms: hand tremors, insomnia, nausea, vomiting, transient hallucination, psychomotor agitation, anxiety, tonic-clonic seizure, and autonomic disability. Yan yung mga symptoms of alcohol withdrawal syndrome. And these are the different symptoms that can be classified as alcohol hallucinosis, withdrawal seizure, and delirium tremens. The most severe of these withdrawal symptoms is the delirium tremens. Alright? In which occurs 24 to 72 hours after alcohol cessation. It is the most severe withdrawal and occurs in 5 to 20% of patients experiencing detoxification and 1/3 of patients experiencing withdrawal seizures. Okay? That is why for for patients suffering from alcohol use disorders, no, depending on their symptoms, they can be admitted to the hospital for detoxification so that you can provide supportive management. Okay, so these are the harmful effects of alcohol withdrawal. And this is what happens, why there is why a person develops alcohol withdrawal symptoms, how a patient develops dependence on alcohol. Okay, and dependence on alcohol, a very good example of that is the classic presentation of Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. And these are the symptoms of Wernicke's and Korsakoff. What we usually encounter in the clinic is a combination of both. Okay, so they have these severe forms of alcohol use disorder. Now, the United States Preventive Service Task Force has recommended that all adults in primary care be screened to identify unhealthy alcohol use, and that those with unhealthy use receive a brief counseling intervention. So just like in smoking, you can also do this brief counseling intervention. Alright? But just like in smoking, you also need to screen. But in alcohol, we have specific screening tool that we can use. So this is the single item screening. You only have to ask these questions. Do you sometimes drink beer? How many times in the past year have you had five or more drinks in a day? So kung for 5 for men, 4 for women. If the answer is yes, then it's already positive. Kasi a response of greater than 0 is positive. Okay, if you want to be more specific about it, you can use the audit. The audit is the most widely validated instrument. It has 10 items that you can ask your patient. A score of 8 is considered positive. A score of 20 or greater suggests the presence of alcohol dependence already. A shorter version of audit is audit C. So this is the example of audit. The other one is audit C. So screening test comprised of 3 items only on excess consumption from the alcohol use disorder identification test. This is briefer than the original, which is the audit that has 10 questions. Ito, mas kukonti siya. So the scores considered positive for unhealthy drinking, 3 or more in women, 4 or more in men. 7 or to 10 or greater suggests dependence. So this is easier to use, the audit C. So this is audit C. So you can print this and use this in your clinic if you want to, when you want to screen for alcohol dependence. So screening is insufficient for some already known to have unhealthy substance use, no? For this patient, you might as well use your DSM-5 criteria. Okay, so what measures can we do? You have screened already and you have detected that there is a problem, no? Then you can proceed with treatment, and part of the treatment is your brief intervention counseling. But what we want is primary prevention as well. So just like in your smoke cigarette, we have policies that we can put in place. Restriction of availability and restriction of sales. That's why there are laws that would prevent us from selling to minors. And not all sari-sari store can sell liquors. They need to have license to sell liquors. And they cannot sell not to minors. They are also part of the sin tax law to increase the price of the commodities, and restricting alcohol advertisement. Okay, even if you see some ads on TV or in the media, social media, laging merong katugtong yan. Alcohol is bad to your health, smoking is bad to your health. So there would always be a disclaimer there to inform the potential consumers that alcohol and smoking are dangerous to health. For secondary level of prevention, again, early diagnosis and treatment, that's why you need to screen. You have those screening tools. And then you can do your primary care intervention like counseling, brief tobacco intervention, counseling for smoke, alcohol cessation. You can follow the 5 A's as well. The same pattern of questions, right? And of course, tertiary, if there are already withdrawal symptoms, it means really that there is already organic problem on your patient. So whatever interventions you're going to use would fall under tertiary prevention, because that would already falls into rehabilitation. Okay? So what is important is to ask about it. Ask about the patterns of alcohol drinking. Kasi sasabihin lang sa inyo ng pasyente nyo, occasional lang po, konti lang po, doktora, paminsan-minsan lang yan. You have to quantify and you have to qualify in terms of frequency and in terms of volume and in terms of the type of alcohol that they take. Kasi kung paminsan-minsan lang yan, konti lang yan. Ano ba to, beer ba to, or distilled liquor? Kasi kung distilled liquor, kahit konti lang yan, you know very well, ang taas ng alcohol content niyan. Okay, so the effect is greater and more severe. Okay, so you need to screen, ask the right questions, screen them for any organic problem and mental health problem, then intervene in terms of counseling. Okay, if there are already complications, if there are already organ damage, then everything that you do would fall under tertiary prevention, and that would mean rehabilitation. Alright, so this brief intervention is the standard treatment of our adult patients in primary care. It would be aimed at abstinence or reduced substance use. No? The optimal goal of brief intervention in primary care for a patient diagnosed with moderate to severe substance use disorder would be for the patient to receive more expensive SUD treatment. So you can refer patients, especially those who are suffering from delirium tremens already. Okay? It may include group counseling, individual or group counseling, outpatient program, or residential inpatient stay. Yung inpatient stay, yung detoxification, especially if there are severe withdrawal symptoms, they need to be detoxified in the hospital for supportive management, and then they will be turned into a residential facility for them not to have access to alcohol. Yung iba, they can afford outpatient lang, they have enough discipline. But for those who have very poor self-discipline, they opt to have this residential treatment. And in that residential treatment, that they provide individual or group counseling. Okay, as I mentioned already detoxification. Treatment may start with detoxification, which is withdrawal that is managed by medical professionals. It would last 2 to 7 days depending on the severity of the withdrawal. So it is usually done in an inpatient treatment center or a hospital. And they offer family therapy as well. Alright. What is more important now is to be familiar with group support. And the famous or more popular group support is the Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. Alright? Yan ang kilala na support group. Okay? So, severe AUD may require staying at the residential treatment center, which may include individual and group therapy, support group, information sessions, activity therapy, and participation by family members. Alright, so this is usually how they introduce themselves in AA. Hello, my name is Jack. I'm an alcoholic. Although this is AA is for alcoholic, they also open their doors to other forms of addiction. So if it's a drug addiction, you would hear them saying, "Hello, my name is Jack. I'm a recovering addict." Ganyan. They always remind themselves because relapse is very high. So these are the 12 steps followed by AA. What is noticeable really is the admission that they are powerless over their disease. And so therefore they need to submit themselves to higher being so that they can start controlling their addiction. So if you look at it, it's a psycho-spiritual approach to dependency. So these are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay? So you may not be Dr. Shet at this point in your career, but being familiar with the 5 A's that you can use for smoking cessation and for alcohol drinking, probably you can practice them to your loved ones and friends. Okay? Brief lang siya 20 minutes or less, you can already make a difference in the life of that person. You try to practice it so that by the time you are doctors, it is something that will be second nature to you, especially if you are going to practice in primary care. In your next module for communication skills, you will have this chance to learn it more as we introduce to you motivational interviewing. That is a longer version of 5 A's and 5 R's. Alright? And in that module, I hope you would bring as your patient a real smoker. Kung anyone in the group is already a smoker, then by all means volunteer to be the patient. Let us see if your classmates would be successful in making you stop smoking. Alright? Because in the past, we actually ask for volunteers. No? Minsan may mga clerks na nag-volunteer. Bait naman sila. Umaamin na sila yung smoker. And they participate in the practice session. But you're going to be again in Zoom. You can encourage your family members who are smoker to be the patient if none of you is a smoker. So that will be dealt with in your communication skills lab. At least you have now an idea of the 5 A's and the 5 R's. It will be easier to do the motivational interviewing technique for smoking cessation. So thank you for listening. I think we have discussed enough. I'm going to upload those in your Moodle